This is update for February 15, 2024, day 722 of the war, end of the date update. Also catch up for February 14 and 13. So I'm going to start as always with general strategic updates, and I'm going to switch to the situation on the battlefield, which is, as most of you know, is pretty terrible for Ukraine. But before we jump there, I want to discuss politically what's going on in Ukraine, because I think it's getting more and more important because of the situation on the front line, which makes situation inside of Ukraine more tense and more explosive, and bringing it closer to that 1917 moment that I mentioned before. So the first chart you see here is the support of current Ukrainian president over time. So this was February 2022, right before the Russian invasion. So as you can see, he was very unpopular. At that time, there was open discussion that he simply will not survive until the summer of 2022. So in some ways, and I mentioned this before a while ago, this Russian invasion was excellent for Ukrainian president, because as you can see, this is what it did. So now he had the 90% support versus 37, and it was quickly sinking. I would say another month it would be like under 30. So he was in pretty bad shape. Russian invasion and Russian president essentially saved him. So as you can see, essentially most of the year his situation was sort of okay, getting worse. However, recently his ratings are starting to sink pretty quickly. So this is both February 24. This is from the 5th to 8th. This is 9th to 10th. So as you can see, the decline is quick, and situation deteriorating for him pretty quickly. And I'm sure after the loss of Avdiyivka, it's probably going to drop to like 50 and below. So basically, he's quickly approaching this level that he used to be at the beginning of the war. Sorry, prior to the war. Now let's just look how he stacks against all sort of political figures, or not even political figures, just various popular figures in Ukraine. So the most popular is the person who he fired, General Zaluzhny. So that actually increased his popularity from, as you can see, 92 to 94. So he's extremely popular. And I'm not saying that he's the great choice, but he's certainly better than current Ukrainian president. But overall, in absolute number, so in the relative way, General Zaluzhny is certainly better. But if you take them from absolute perspective, they both not where what you need to be successful in this defense war that Ukraine is engaged in, against its will, obviously. Then there is a head of Ukrainian intelligence service, and then this is the general that was just appointed, General Syrskyi. So it actually looks like the fact that he was appointed kind of gave him extra boost, probably because he's now more recognizable by majority of the by more people, basically. But as you can see, there is quite a significant differential between General Zaluzhny and current Ukrainian president, and so that was one of the main drivers for the firing. Now, I actually want to mention something else that happened is so Russian military forces shot a missile. They were shooting actually, I believe, at this airfield. It's called Hostomel Airfield. The reason they are shooting, and there's significant number of Russian attacks against various airfields because they want to destroy them, so that chances of successful use of F-16 are going down. And as many of you know, Ukraine is probably going to have F-16 sometime in the spring. Well, technically, Ukraine already has it, but probably will be first attempts to use it as a military asset, actually, as you know, in its main sort of purpose. So this is some missile that is claimed to be North Korean missile KN-23. It actually created quite a huge hole in the ground, and it has payload of 500 kilograms, and this looks that this is actually more than 500 kilograms. However, the more important, assuming this is North Korean, the more important part is that it's actually is pretty much not very precise at all. So this is where it hit. This is the village, and it's actually on the edge of the village. This missile hit. So it's about like 5 kilometers to the actual airport, or airfield. So pretty poor precision, let's put this way. Now I'm going to switch to the situation on the battlefield, and obviously the main focus is going to be Avdiyivka, because Ukrainian forces are in process of losing it. I would say they already lost it. At this point, it's just withdrawal of the troops inside of that salient. But first, I'm going to walk through in a clockwise fashion, as I always do, starting from very north. The situation along the state border remains more or less the same. No essential changes or anything sort of threatening there. Now let's jump to the North Lugansk front line. Things here relatively quieter. There are some Russian attacks in the southern sector, but it's I would say on the lighter end here, and there is no meaningful movements by Russian forces. Then let's just jump to the North Donbass front line. Things here sort of similar. Northern sector is quiet, and then all activity is straight west of Bakhmut mostly, and also south west of Bakhmut. Russian troops continuing their advance straight west of Bakhmut. It's 300 meters, but nevertheless they moving forward slowly but surely. Once they capture any of the villages, I'll update the map. But for now, it's just simply not worth the move. The movement is fairly small. Now let's move to central Donbass front line, where the main action is at this point. So this is how it looked when I showed it last time on February 12th. So you saw the key was this Russian advance, and essentially cutting the cutting off of the town itself from this coking plant. Essentially, this effectively destroyed Ukrainian defenses. It's at that point already. So now let's look actually where everything is happening, what's going on right now. So what happened first? Russian troops continued their advance towards, call it mostly west, a little bit southwest. And at this point, as you can see, this bottleneck had become very narrow. The exit and entrance is only available through the fields. That's why the wheeled equipment is terrible for these situations. But at this point, this is agony essentially of Ukrainian troops. And based on my understanding, Ukrainian command is actually actively pulling all of its troops from this salient, from the from Avdiyivka, essentially to this line that I mentioned before, Severne Lastachkine, and this coking plant. So that's they trying to establish new defensive line there. Whether it's going to be successful or not will remains to be seen. The 110th Brigade was already pulled out. The 3rd Brigade, Azov, was brought in, and they holding this corner, which is actually very important, this coking plant. So they are in sort of important position to ensure that this new defensive line will sort of be established. In the meanwhile, Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian troops essentially withdrawing from the most eastern part of this semi-encirclement and basically accumulating here in this area and then exiting through the fields out of this almost pocket, let's put this way. There were Russian troops managed to capture important Ukrainian stronghold. There are some reports that not everyone managed to escape, so there are some apparently prisoners of war here, but it's not large number by any means. I would say it's probably definitely less than 50 people, probably more like 10, 20 soldiers, maybe 30. We'll find out later once it becomes available. Once it's available. But in any case, this is at this point not even agony. It's I would say active withdrawal from this very difficult situation. The withdrawal probably should have started earlier than where it's when it's happening right now, because Ukrainian troops that are withdrawing are subject to the fire, just not even just general sort of artillery fire, mortar fire, but even sort of straight line fire from tanks and so on. So in some ways it's a little bit too late, but it's better later than never, as I say. Ukrainian forces clearly overstayed here, going back to when this whole thing started, it's obviously, to be fair, it's not responsibility of the current Ukrainian new commander, General Syrsky. This whole process started under General Zaluzhny long time ago. Actually, the first building block was actually collapse of Ukrainian defenses straight west of this Donetsk airport. That was in August of 2022. So this has been making for a really long time. The actually active phase of Russian, I would say, I wouldn't even call it offensive, it's a Russian squeeze, let's put it this way, started I think early October of 23. So this is a result of that active phase. But without the sort of like advances in preparation that happened before that, none of this would have been possible starting October. So as I said, this is all has been in making for quite a long time. Now let's this is just general map. I'll update once Avdiyivka is going to be lost by Ukrainian forces, then I'll update the map. But then looking at the situation around Marinka, it's Marinka already captured by Russian troops. Basically, Russian troops slowly but surely continuing their advance straight west of Marinka. Situation around Novomykhailivka also pretty difficult. Russian troops managed to capture eastern part of the village. They continuing their advance. So again, does look here that the Russian troops will capture Novomykhailivka in fairly short order. Again, this is most primitive approach here, sort of squeeze, nothing sort of intelligent the way it's being done. Now let's move to the Zaporizhya front line. Things here fairly quiet, then some pretty mild pressure. in this area, Velika Novosilka area, where Ukrainian troops had sort of so-called offensive in the summer. But again, nothing truly major happening here. Now let's finish with the situation along the Dnipro River. Things here remain more or less the same. Ukrainian bridgehead remains there. For now, no strong and active attempts by Russian troops to destroy it. As a whole, I would say that what is very clear is that Russian command pull all of the resources towards Avdiyivka, so that activity on the remaining sectors of the front line is definitely subdued, which is the clear sign that there is not huge amount of resources. In a way, this is capturing Avdiyivka becomes sort of like propaganda victory for Russia, for Russian political top, and as a tool against West, to bring West to the peace negotiation table on the Russian terms. And that's probably going to be the biggest win out of all of this. Is not really Avdiyivka, but not territorial gain, but this propaganda gain, and that will be attempted to use by Russian political top, as I said, to force West and Ukraine to sign peace agreement. And at this point, Russia's approach to peace agreement, you let us keep everything what we captured so far. I want to mention one other point about Ukrainian president. So Ukrainian president in this very important moment actually decided to leave the country, didn't even go anywhere close to the front line to show support to the troops, or do something at least sort of moral boosting or anything. He just went to Europe to meet with, I think, French president, German chancellor, and so on. So again, this really kind of shows, I would say, very negative attitude, and there is also this continues building negative perception of Ukrainian president by Ukrainian population, and especially by Ukrainian army, which, as I mentioned before, he has very low, I would say, likability in the Ukrainian army. Pretty, I would say, at the very bottom, much worse than those ratings that I showed you, because they include general population as well. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye-bye.